have a look at more of what's happening in the stock market. And right now, as you can see, Market Watch, well, there are so many indices here. A few indices that basically are very much important to watch out for. And these are basically real time. So if you turn to the US, you can actually have a look at the Dow Jones. This is real time now. And you can have a look at the S&P 500. You can have a look at NASDAQ, Global Dow, and some bit of a few commodities, just like gold and also oil. So starting with the US, you can see that the Dow Jones, it's basically showing that a share there is down by 0.34% as we speak right now. Just recall that the Dow Jones is an index that is tracking down 30 best performing public listed companies, and it is basically showing that this share price on average is down by 0.34%, and that being an equivalent of about 112.18 points loss. That is the Dow Jones. So that is basically bringing it to about 33,174.07. That's the value at which it is trading right now per share. And that is it with the Dow Jones. One of the most important indices to watch out for on the stock market, on the global stock market, say probably in the US. So you have a look at the S&P 500 over here. The S&P 500 is also a very important stock market, and it is showing here that probably you have, it's called the Standard & Poor's 500. It's showing that the share is down by 0.43% as we speak right now, and that is an equivalent of about a loss of 18.36 points loss. So that is the S&P 500. It is one of the most important to watch out for. 500 best performing public listed companies that are listed in the US. So you have so many of these prestigious companies listed, being tracked by the S&P 500. So you have the NASDAQ as well. The NASDAQ is also down by 0.95% on average, depending on the companies that it is tracking. And you can see there that that is being represented by about, it's an equivalent of about 125.58 loss in the points loss, and thus bring it to about 13,129.96. So that is the NASDAQ. The global Dow we saw, but right now as we speak, it is basically also changing, and this is real time. These figures are changing real time, and you can have a look at the global Dow as well. It's basically down by about 0.12%, and thus about a loss of about between 4.8 and 5.2 points loss as we speak right now, and depending on how it's happening. So the gold, if you look at commodities, if you look at the commodities over there, you can see that the gold is basically also, the price of gold is down by 0.15% as we speak. And that is equivalent to about a 3.10 loss, points loss. So that is very important to note, and thus bring it to about 1,996.70. Remember, about a week ago and a half, it was about at 1,513 point a few units here and there. But right now, it's down by about 1,996. Remember, it had gone even over 2,000. So right now, it's a bit actually down as we see just right over here. And oil as well has continued to basically, we should say, has gone down further. Oil has basically hiked up, I beg your pardon, has hiked up by about 1.71%. Yes, so that's the price of oil right now. It's up by 1.73%, 1.71%, and just around that figure, and that is equivalent to gaining about 1.83 points. That's bringing it to $107.85 per barrel as we speak. right now. That's oil. So now that is basically a few commodities for you, and also a few indices as per Market Watch. So these are live. And they're happening. They're being displayed as they're happening at all times. So now turning to Europe, where we have also markets down a bit. Now we have seen in Asia, in the US, markets are down. Now let's have a look at Europe right over here and see probably how the markets are performing. Yes, if we can go to Europe, we can see right over here how markets are performing. Let's just turn to Europe. Probably my colleague Shakira can help me do that. And we can see Europe over there as well. So just recall that Europe, we are also seeing markets a bit down, and it is important to note that no single market in Europe is basically, no index is showing a gain because of a few mixed feelings within the investing world. So that is happening over there, and that's basically because of the instability, or probably the invasion of Russia or Ukraine, and posing a ripple effect in Kenya, in Europe as we speak right now. So let's now turn to Europe just right over here, so we can see also what it is like over there. So yes, so now we have something very interesting coming in, because these are based on these are real-time figures changing all the time. We can see here in Europe that the Financial Times Stock Exchange 100 is also reporting now a gain. It's reporting a gain of about 0.96% in the share price on average. And thus, that being about 65, 67 gain in the value of a share on average. So that's the Great Britain. That's the Great Britain's FTSE 100, tracking down 100 best performing companies in the Great Britain. That is the Financial Times. So the DAX, which is from Germany, also tracking down best performing public listed companies listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. You can see here that the price is basically, the price of a share is up by 1.07, just around that range, and that equivalent to about 144, 145 points gain. And that is quite something also very interesting. So markets have changed, and now you can see in Europe, we are seeing a lot of gainers right now at the moment. But of course, this is prone to change any time something happens to the stock market at any one point in time. Now the CSC 40 is also a very important index. It's tracking down 40 best performing public listed companies in France. And it is indicating over here that, stocks, that the price is up by 0.50% on average. And also you can see that a share that it is also up by about 32.23 points as we speak right now. That's now from basically France. Now let's have a look at the IBEX 35. The IBEX 35 from Spain is also indicating that a share price is up by 0.87, 0.88%, and that is being indicated, or probably that's an equivalent of gaining about 69, 70 points, and thus that is what is happening over there in Spain through the IBEX 35, which is tracking down 35 best performing public listed companies in Spain. So that is it with many of basically these stocks, and you can see that the trend is many of them are now gainers at this point in time as we speak. And yes, we're yet to see what happens by the close of day. But of course, seeing oil prices now a bit down right from 130. About last week, by the close of last week, we saw the price of oil was skyrocketing globally. But now we can see here that probably the price of oil being at about $107 per barrel now is having an impact on investors' mindset, and also how money is being injected in a few markets here and there. Let's now have a look at Russia. Let's now have a look at, I beg your pardon, let's have a look at Asia, just right over here. Asia is just right over here. So in Asia, actually the story is very interesting. In Asia, the story is very interesting, and right here we can see that the Asia Dow, as we see it, is basically now indicating a downward trend in the value of the stock. It's saying that probably it's down by 2.08%, and that is being represented, or probably equivalent to about 71 points loss, and that bringing it to about 3,393.14. That's the value of a share right now as we speak. So the Asia Dow is also losing, and just about 2%, we must say. So that is also something to be noted, and it's a very important issue. Now, looking at the Nikkei 225, the Nikkei 225 is tracking down 225 best public listed companies in Japan, and you can see over here that the value of the stock is down by 2.05%, and that is an equivalent of losing about 527.62 points, thus bringing it to a value of 25,162.78 as we speak right now. So that's it with the Nikkei 225 from Japan. So you have companies like Toyota and so many others just basically being tracked by the Nikkei 225 index. Now, if we may turn to Hong Kong, through the Hang Seng index is basically indicating here that the value of the stock is down by 1.61%, and that is an equivalent of a loss of about 336.47 points. That's the Hang Seng. So it's basically tracking down public listed companies in Hong Kong and trying to give us a view, probably a glimpse on how the stock market there is performing and how the share prices are faring. So it's based on share price, and right here, as we can see, the Hang Seng is losing, and so is the Nikkei, and the Asia Dow are all basically down by about on average 2%, we can say. So if you can also have, if you can also go to Shanghai, you can also see right over there that the Shanghai is basically is among the main indices that basically just give us a clue or a glimpse on what's happening in mainland China and the stock market there. Of course, there are many other indices that basically that are basically shown out there. So the Shanghai is indicating that, well, you have the value of the stock up by 0.41%, and that is an equivalent of a gain of about 13.65 points, and that is also something writing off over there. So the Sensex from India is also up by 0.14, 0.13, that's the range, and thus that is being represented by about a 65 to about a 73 points gain. That's the range within which the Sensex India is basically gaining. The Sensex India is also tracking down companies in India, and also just giving us a glimpse here of what is basically happening right over there with the stock. So right it is very important to go to Singapore as well. So the Singapore is a very important market as well, because it's one of those very, very vibrant economies of the world, and their stories are very interesting. Their story is very interesting. So when we see here that it is indeed gaining by 0.28%, that is also quite something to implore. Now you can see there that that is equivalent to about 8.93 points gain in the value of the stock right over there in Singapore. So these are all averages, and they are basically, that is what is happening. So except you have right here, according to Market Watch, the Asia Dow is basically losing. These are real-time numbers. The Nikkei 225 is losing. The Hang Seng is also losing. But the Shanghai, Sensex, and Singapore are basically just above zero. So that is something to note. And so they are basically, I should say, performing they are gaining. So if you may have a look at a few bits of other important markets, for example, the bonds just right over here is a very important market to also, the bond market. Let's just have a look at a few treasury bonds and how they are performing basically all across the world. With examples of the US, the 10-year bond just right over here. Let's just go right on the rates as well, so we can have a look at, let's have it, yes. So now you see the bonds, the bond market here, and you can see that this is where you lend your money to governments, and so you do that through the bonds, the government bonds. So you can see here that you have the US 10-year bond down by 0.0034 points, and thus bring it to about $1.991. That is the US 10-year bond. So if you were to buy 10-year bond, that is basically the price. The Germany 10-year bond is basically right now also a bit of down by 0.011 points, and thus bringing it to 0.263 in German currency. So that is the value of the stock, the value of the bond, the price of the bond in Germany, 10-year bond. If you may go to Italy, you can see right over here that you have a 10-year bond from Italy down by about 0.008 points, thus bringing it to 1.911 in Italian currency. So it is very important to also note that that is what is basically happening. So except the Spain 10-year bond is the only one that's basically gaining, and it is basically up by 0.014, about 0.014, 0.015, and that's basically the range, and thus now bringing it to 1.71 in local currency. So when we turn to the UK 10-year bond is also not actually, there's not much changing right now with it, and it is basically at 1.522 pounds as we speak right now. So that is it with the UK 10-year bond. If you may have a look at the Japan 10-year bond, it is basically now, right now, trading. It is indeed up, now down by about 0.0078. That is the 10-year bond for Japan, and that brings it to about 0.184. Yeah, that's the value of the bond. That's the price of the bond, 0.184 in Japan currency. So in domestic currency. So that is the Japan 10-year bond. However, you can see the UK bond is changing. It's just in between there. It's just right above zero and at zero as well. So it's indicating a zero is indicating a zero change right now, but at the same time going up a bit by up to about 0.01. So it's just about that passe as we speak right now. So that is it with the bond market all across the globe, and these are all government bonds, and that is just a fair outlook on how the US, Germany, Italy, Spain, UK, and Japan bonds are basically faring. These are all 10-year bonds. Now let's have a look at the futures. Remember, futures are also very much important to look out for because they basically right here are the futures. Right here are the futures, and they basically they are called contracts per se, and these are normally contracts by the buyer and the seller to basically transact a certain commodity or probably stock, and this is at a fixed price. This is at a fixed price and also at a given time, just to ensure that the forces of demand and supply or probably other market forces don't come in to interfere. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average Future is up by 0.21%. The S&P Future is up by 0.30%. The Nasdaq Future is up by 0.4%. And probably if you may look at gold, now the commodities that are futures right here, gold is also down by 0.26% and silver down by 0.12%. So is crude oil up. Crude oil is up by 1.16%. And that is a typical representation of the futures. Now, I've been very privileged to have you all throughout the show, and this is where we give the best of business broadcasting, and I wish you a lovely weekend. See you on Monday. Julius Nsuluga, Smart 24.